hi, I'm thrilled today to have as my guest Bob Galen, someone who needs very little introduction. I've known Bob for about 3 years now, and we've had the chance to collaborate on a number of different projects. I always learn a lot when I'm working with Bob, and I always laugh a lot. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Bob. And Bob, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Hey, Anthony, good to see you. I agree. I have fun with you as well. You're one of the good ones, so I enjoy working with you. I'm Bob Galen, everyone. I'm an Agile coach. I live in Cary, North Carolina. Been doing coaching for a little while, maybe a few decades in the Agile space and doing coaching. I do some training as well. I probably have areas of specialty, if you will, or interest. Product ownership is an interest area of mine. Agile leadership is an interest area of mine. I've written a few books, but what I'm excited about now is I have a new project. I'm writing a book on Agile coaching. So that's a new area. I've been whining about Agile coaching and some of the aspects of Agile coaching in our industry. And I've been whining for several years about it. And then it dawned on me, like, Bob Galen, and I talked to myself that way. I'm like, Bob, you need to stop whining and start doing something about it. So I'm hoping that the book will maybe make a little difference in the world. So that's enough about me.
Awesome. Well, Bob, you don't look like the other people that I've interviewed for the Fresh Agile Voices series. An obvious question is, why are you here today?
I've been asking myself that same question, Anthony. So, I mean, yes, I'm a 60-something white guy, grandfather, but who's very passionate about it. It's not just Black Lives Matter. Several years ago, George Floyd impacted me, and the protest impacted me, and I've been talking to my daughter about it for several years. I've been trying to create more diversity in my workshops that I give. And a few years ago, I was talking to my daughter, Rhiannon, and she's a social worker, so she's much more tuned into this than I am. And she has a very diverse group. She's a director of training and organizational development at a child social work firm in New York City. So very tuned in to this, and she does training. And I was complaining about one of my workshops, and I was complaining about it. The audience isn't diverse, the class isn't diverse, and she asked me what I did about it. And I'm like, I sent out an email, and I invited everyone. And she's like, well, what else did you do? And I'm like, I sent out 5 emails. What do you want from me? And this is what I got. I got, basically white folks like me, or whatever. I mean, there was some diversity in the room. And she's like, Dad, you have to work for it. And that was really an epiphany for me. She's like, you can't. There's a key point. You can be trying to attract diversity, you can be trying to support it, or you can be complaining about it. There's a theme here, everyone. Or you can actually you have to take action if you want to make a change. And she's like, it's not just good enough. I remember it like it was yesterday. This is probably 2.5 years ago. She's like, you have to, if you want a more diverse crowd, then you have to reach out to African American women. If you want more women, you have to reach out to women. You may actually have to you have to invite someone. You may have to offer them a discount because they can't afford it. You may have to change the time so it's a more approachable time for them. Otherwise, they can't come. And I actually I was argumentative with her initially. So I don't always take correction from my children very well. So, but after a few days, it dawned on me, and I'm like, you're right. I need to get off my butt, and I need to if I care about this, then I need to change what I'm doing. And then a year or so ago, just the events really galvanized me. So I realized that I have a platform. I podcast, I blog. I'm pretty well respected in the Agile community, and so and I do training and coaching. So I'm like, how can I use my platform to make a difference, and not just talk about it, but I got to get off my butt and I got to take action, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I want to get to some of those specific steps because I think that's the main reason I wanted you to come today, is to share what you're doing and hopefully inspire other people. But just a quick personal note, I have a daughter who's also a social worker, and it was through her actions that we were out supporting the Black Lives Matter movements and protesting last summer. If she hadn't had a tough conversation with me over dinner, I probably wouldn't have gotten engaged the way that I have. So thank God for daughters.
Exactly.
So with that, I noticed, you know, on your website now, if we go out to your blog, we see a Black Lives Matter link. And I know you and Josh Anderson have been talking about this on the Metacast. Tell us about some of the specific things you're doing, and hopefully that'll inspire others and open their minds up a little bit.
Well, one thing that I'm doing and I'm sort of proud of is that so I teach an Agile leadership, a certified Agile leadership class, and Anthony, you and I've actually done that together, and I've done that for a while, and so I'm offering discounts. I'm offering diversity discounts, discounts for women, people of color. I'm really, it's not just African Americans. It's anyone military. I broadened it to I did a stint in the army, and I'm like, I think veterans are underserved sometimes, folks who
Mhm.
are underemployed and who are trying to get back. And particularly get passionate about women who are trying to get back into the workplace and doing it. So I cut the price to make it almost just, break even a little bit more. I don't want to give it away for free because I want folks to work for it, but I want it to be approachable.
Yeah,
So the classes I've done that, and that's actually I've gotten really good receptions around that.
awesome.
And I've my classes. So I'll tell you, Anthony, I saw something on LinkedIn, a class, maybe a class 1 or 2 or 3 classes ago, uh, and I have a lot of LinkedIn connections. And there was this an African American woman who commented on one of my pictures from a cow class, and she said that looks like a very diverse class, and it just warmed my heart. It
Yeah.
just and it was a diverse class. It was like half and half women, probably 5 or 6 of people of color, and the class was maybe capped at 12. So, but to get people to recognize that I'm trying, it just warmed my heart a little bit. So the
Yeah.
classes are one thing, and I think everyone, if you're doing something like that, do it. I've actually done 2 classes just for folks. I'm lucky that I have some connections who are very tuned into to Nigeria and to some other countries in Africa. There's a young lady in Texas, a new Gopout, and she has created this africaagility.org. So
Oh,
everyone
wow.
can. The website's down now, so don't go to the website. But and what they did is they did a boot camp for young women in Lagos, Nigeria, who were trying to get into what is it, STEM, who were trying to become more STEM aware,
Hmm.
and they ran a boot camp for them. They did a Scrum Master, they did some Agile classes. They built a website or something. They did graphical design. They were doing web authoring, and it was like a 3 or 4 week boot camp. And I
Awesome.
started contributing to her group. So $100. So not only do I have discounts, but every diversity seat that I sell, I give $100 to a news group for these girls,
That's
and
wonderful.
and they're training them. And I don't know if you remember, but they were there was the government was shooting young people in Nigeria a while back, and it really affected this group. One of the students was actually killed.
Oh my
So
God.
it's I don't think we realize how challenging it is. So I'm trying to look geographically. It's not just African Americans in the United States, but I'm trying to look as broadly with my connections as I can and to give back. So
Yeah.
I continue to give to that organization. It's something that I'm really sort of passionate about. So that's that. So giving some, sort of sponsoring some groups.
Hmm.
I've done some cow classes that are directed purely to African Americans,
Hmm.
too, and then some general classes.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing that Josh and I do is we just try. There's a local group here in Raleigh, Durham, who's trying to do reach out to students, to minority students before they get into college, to influence them. So it's sort of high school students or very early in college to help, sort of explain to them the advantages of going into technology and Agile. and to do a modicum of training. It's called Standout.
That's
And there's
great.
Camille Sproul she has a company down here, a woman-owned company, Agile Coaching, and she's sponsoring that. So I guess what I'm saying is I've raised my hand and said, and maybe the good news is I've raised my hand, and the bad news, good news is a lot of people have reached out. I'm almost tapped out, but people were reaching out to me to help in these areas that I can use my platform to help, and I'm just proud of it. Josh and I talk about one of the biggest problems. I think the Black Lives Matter movement it sort of sputtered a little bit. It had that energy, and he and I are trying to maintain our energy towards
Mhm.
action. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that's hard sometimes is to you can have an immediate reaction, but I think it's important to sustain it over time. So we're trying
Well,
to do
yeah.
that.
Yeah, especially for those of us who don't have the day-to-day impacts. It's easy to be complacent, and you get busy with the preoccupations of what my daughter calls the first world problems, you
Yep.
know, uh, and we neglect to think about others. So I'm inspired by all of this, and I want to encourage others. Part of this platform is giving voice to some of the people in Agile world, in the Agile coaching space specifically, who might not otherwise have a voice. But what other recommendations might you have for people who have a desire to help or feel motivated but don't know where to get started?
I think you have to be relentless. You have to look. It goes back to my daughter's comment to me, Anthony. So everyone, if you're interested, oh, I'm passionate. Black Lives Matter, diversity, women in Agile,
Right.
woohoo, right? And then it's like, but then you're like sitting there saying, well, they need to find me, or no one's knocking at my door, and it's like, no, you need to get up off your ass, and you need to like find opportunities. It really is important for us. I don't think there's any magic. I'm finding these. Leverage your network. So my daughter and I spoke at a Women in Agile group in Charlotte um, about diversity just a week ago, and we reached out to the women in our Agile. So I saw something on LinkedIn, and I reached out to them. So I extended my hand, and I'm like, "Can I talk?" I invited my daughter to do like a mini panel with me, and she accepted, and we scheduled it, and it really worked out. I mean, and so this was focused more towards women, but there were minorities or people of color. The situation with women in Asia, right? Asians and what's going on in this country now with Asians came
Yeah.
up, and we were talking about that, and so that didn't land in my lap. I had to create that. The
I like
connection I
that.
have with the new, I had to exercise that. So about a month or so ago, I found a Scrum Masters and there's a group, Scrum Masters of African descent, on Meetup, and
Wow.
there's this young guy, Scrum Master in North Carolina, but it's a global group. We had a bunch of people from Chicago, from your area, attend. It was Anthony. It was on a Sunday.
Huh.
It was 2 to 4 o'clock on a Sunday Eastern time, and I did like an Ask Me Anything session there, and
Very cool.
I connected with this guy, and I had just it was me waving my hand, and then they connected. Then I said yes, I'll do it. Now I wrinkled my forehead because it was a Sunday afternoon, for goodness
Sure.
sakes. So that's not the most convenient time. But do you know that there were over 80 people attending
That's
a
awesome.
Sunday afternoon Scrum Master, and there was some wonderful questions. I actually wrote a blog post that was inspired by it, like how to find Scrum Master jobs with little to no experience,
Mm.
and it was inspired by that session. So the short answer, everyone, you can tell I'm a long answer guy. The short answer is I think you have to work for it.
Yeah.
And I would offer, if you're willing to work for it, then you can reach out to me, and I can inspire you with ideas, and I
That's
can inspire
awesome.
you with connections. But you got to
Yeah.
be willing to work for it, and you got to be willing to do the sweat equity. I don't know any other way to say it.
Well, I love your examples of reaching out. In almost every case, you're talking about a partnership, an outreach that you made that resulted in a relationship, and then you're working together with somebody. I mean, that's really what it's all about.
And I'll tell you what, it's the most rewarding thing. No one is, sending you cards or anything, but it is I find it's incredibly rewarding to be able to give back. You and I have talked about this before. I think
Mhm.
we have a responsibility. Agile's been very good to us, and we have platforms. And I think everyone has somewhat responsibility to give back or to pay it forward. Um, but these, I was coaching someone, and they were on. I do a moose herd, a lean coffee, and this guy attended this morning, and he's white, but he's older, and he did 95 interviews to find a scrum master coach job, and he finally landed the job.
Oh my
And I think
God.
he was experiencing some age discrimination,
Yeah.
and I did some mock interviews with him, and I tried to provide a little bit of coaching with him. It matters immensely, the little things that each one of us can do.
Well, I'm really inspired by your efforts, Bob, and what you've done, how creative you've been. Um, Before we close, is there anything that we can do to support you, or anything that you want to promote today?
I would like this to result in everyone that reads it, that's inspired, reach out to Anthony. I want you to inundate him with requests, with energy and spirit, and then Anthony can be a router to me with a little bit of overflow because I'm tapped out. My whip limit. Anthony and I were joking about this earlier. So I have to manage my volunteer whip. But in all seriousness, what anyone who's seeing this, I would like to inspire you to take personal accountability and try to find something small that you can do. Seriously reach out to Anthony, and seriously reach out to me. We have to make a difference, and let's not slow down. Let's not have this be one event, and 5 years from now, we're looking back and it's like Black Lives Mattered, but now let's take. It's not. We're not going to change the world if we don't maintain some energy, and we owe that. I think that's our privilege. So I'm going to speak for Anthony real quick, everyone. He and I are privileged,
Mhm.
and maybe some
For
of you
sure.
are privileged. We have to embrace our privilege, not be shy about it, embrace it, be thankful for it. And then part of that action is part of our privilege is extending. I want everyone who's listening to extend a hand out to other people and just help where you can. That's really how we need to handle our privilege.
That's wonderful. That's well said, Bob. I don't want to add anything on there or take anything away from your message. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Keep that whip level sustainable,
I will. I'll try.
and we'll
Thank you,
talk again
everyone. Thank
soon. I
you,
look
Anthony.
forward to collaborating with you again on some project.